And if the accounts in the Bible were not just old stories passed down from generation to generation, but real records of events that really happened, capable of challenging everything we know about the history of humanity, imagine digging into the earth and finding evidence that prove events that happened thousands of years, exactly as it is written in the scriptures. Today we are going to discover 12 archaeological findings incredible that not only impress historians, but also shed a fascinating light on the veracity of facts biblical. Get ready to discover concrete evidence that connects history, ancient to the Bible, in ways that you never imagined. Discovery 1. The Seal of Baruch. Proof of the existence of a prophet biblical. In the 1970s, during excavations in ancient Jerusalem, archaeologists found a small piece of clay that, at first glance, seemed insignificant. But upon examining it with care, they noticed something that would change the vision of many scholars: the seal of Baruch, secretary of the prophet Jeremiah. This seal, from the 5th century period before of Christ, bore the inscription in ancient Hebrew, Baruch, son of Neriah. The importance of this finding is monumental. Jeremiah is known in the Bible as one of the great prophets who warned the people of Judah about the imminent destruction of Jerusalem. The presence of his seal scribe, Baruch, not only confirms the existence of this historical character, as it also suggests that the administration of the prophet was organized and recorded in an official manner. Imagine the scene. A diligent scribe amidst threats of invasion and destruction, carefully recording names on clay seals, knowing that their writing can survive millennia. Each stroke engraved on that seal carries the tension and importance of the era. And if I told you that this seal is just the tip of the iceberg, it opens doors to even deeper questions deep. How many other archaeological records, are hidden beneath the layers of Jerusalem, waiting to prove biblical stories that until are questioned today? Discovery 2. The walls of Jericho collapsing. The city of Jericho, famous for the account, biblical, in which its walls fell before the power of God, it was excavated by archaeologists in several campaigns since the 1930s and 1990s. Among the findings, the walls stand out. Ancient, dating back to around 1000 BCE of CR, exactly during the period when the biblical texts suggest the conquest of city by Joshua and the Israelites. What makes this discovery fascinating is not just the existence of the walls, but the way they crumbled in an unusual. Geological studies indicate that earthquakes may have caused the collapse structural, something that coincides with accounts of trumpets and shouts in the biblical narrative. While the Bible describes a divine miracle, science archaeological shows a natural phenomenon that may have been interpreted as divine intervention by those who experienced the event. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of soldiers and citizens watching the walls give way, not understanding how that was possible. For modern archaeologists, the discovery not only confirms the existence of city, but also provides context, physical, to understand accounts that previously seemed impossible. Discovery 3. The Tel Dan Stele, the proof of the King of Israel. The third discovery that we will explore is considered one of the most compelling archaeological evidence of the existence of characters mentioned in the Bible. In the 1990s, during excavations in Tel Dan, in the north of Israel, archaeologists found a stone stele with inscriptions in Aramaic. Known as the Tel Dan stele, it mentions the King of Israel, and the Tel Dan, it mentions the King of Israel and the house of David. This finding is revolutionary, because until then, the historical existence of King David had been debated by historians, with some considering him just a figure legendary. Estella shows that the dynasty of David is not just a biblical myth, but a historical reality. Imagine the impact of this artifact, a stone that survived millennia, silent witness of alliances, wars, and ancient governments, bearing inscriptions that mention central figures of the biblical history. For historians and archaeologists, it's like finding a lost chapter of an ancient book written in stone. Curiosity. And if this star is just the beginning, If we managed to find evidence of existence of King David, how many other leaders and events mentioned in the Bible may still have archaeological records that reinforce its veracity? Discovery 4, the Cyrus cylinder, the freedom of the Jews. Among the most important artifacts ever found is the Cyrus cylinder, dated to approximately 539 BC. Christ, discovered in ancient Babylon in 1879. Today, it is preserved in the British Museum in London. This clay cylinder contains inscriptions in cuneiform script where the Persian king Cyrus the Great proclaims his policy of freeing exiled peoples and allow them to return to their lands to rebuild their temples. The detail is impressive. This decree corresponds directly to what the Bible describes in the book of Ezra, chapter 1, when Cyrus allows the Jews return to Jerusalem after the exile Babylonian. Imagine the scene. A ruler who conquers the greatest empire of the time and instead of oppressing even more the people, announces freedom. That cylinder made of clay more than 2,500 years is still considered today the first charter of human rights in history. Curiosity. And if this document were just historical evidence, but also evidence of how God had already announced centuries before the role of Cyrus as a liberator. In the book of Isaiah, written long before the birth of Cyrus, he is already mentioned as my anointed one. How to explain this coincidence? Discovery 5. The Tunnel of Hezekiah, an engineering feat biblical in the heart of Jerusalem in 1838. Explorers rediscovered something extraordinary, an underground tunnel with more than 500 kilometers in length, excavated in solid rock. This is the famous Tunnel of Hezekiah mentioned in 2 Kings 20:20 and 2 Chronicles 32:30. The Bible relates that King Hezekiah, facing the threat of the Assyrian army, built a water supply system to ensure that Jerusalem could withstand a siege. The excavation of the tunnel brought water from the Gihon Spring to the Siloam Reservoir Siloam, ensuring survival for the people. The tunnel can still be traversed by tourists nowadays, and inside its interior was found an inscription known as the Siloam inscription, which describes how two groups of workers dug in opposite directions until they met in the middle. The incredible detail is that this meeting happened with almost perfect precision, even without modern technology. Imagine the feeling of the archaeologists upon entering the tunnel and find words engraved by the workers themselves who lived at that time. Curiosity. How men from antiquity managed to accomplish such a complex work without compasses, lasers, or modern maps would have been just skill or also divine providence. Discovery 6. The Moabite Stone, the account of an enemy king. In 1868, missionaries and archaeologists found in Dib, Jordan, a black stone with inscriptions that would change the study of the Bible. The Mesha Stele, also called the Moabite Stone, with 1.15 centimeters in height, the stele has 34 lines written in Moabite, a language close to Hebrew. It was erected by the king Mesha of Moab, enemy of Israel, to celebrate his victory over the Israelites. The text directly quotes the God of Israel, Yahweh, in addition to mentioning the house of Omri, dynasty of kings of Israel, described in 1st and 2nd Kings. This artifact is precious because, beside confirming names and facts biblical, shows the point of view of another people of the region. It's as if the story were told from the side enemy, further reinforcing the authenticity of the biblical records. Visualize the impact of this discovery. A pagan king directly mentioning the name of God and the kings of Israel on an official stone. For scholars, it is the proof that the Israelites were just a people invented in religious traditions, but they were actually involved in wars and disputes policies that marked the region. Curiosity. And if more stelae and inscriptions like this are still buried, bringing parallel accounts of enemy peoples that confirm the biblical narrative from different angles, these three discoveries, the cylinder of Cyrus, the tunnel of Hezekiah, and the stone of Moab, not only reinforce the veracity of biblical accounts, but also show something even more powerful. The Bible is not an isolated book, but it is deeply connected to the history of kings, empires, and civilizations of antiquity. It's fascinating to think that objects made of clay, stones, and tunnels excavated thousands of years ago, thousands of years continue to echo the truth of the word to this day. For those doubt, these discoveries function as pieces of a puzzle that, when united, show a clear image. Discovery number 7. Manuscripts of the Dead Sea. Between 1947 and 1956, in the caves of Cran, near the coast northwest of the Dead Sea, were discovered about 900 manuscripts dated between 250 BC and 70 AD, offering a unique panorama of Judaism of the Second Temple and the historical context of the Bible. The scrolls include fragments of almost all the books of the Old Testament, except Esther, in addition to non-canonical texts, commentaries on scriptures, community rules, and liturgical calendars. The Great Scroll of Isaiah, found practically complete, allows for direct comparison the ancient texts with the medieval Masoretic text, showing minimal differences that do not alter the content. These manuscripts reveal not only the fidelity in the transmission of texts, but also social and religious practices of the community that lived there. A rigorous society dedicated to ritual purity and the preservation of scriptures. The material used, usually treated leather parchment and mineral ink, combined with the extremely dry climate of the region, ensured a preservation that defies the centuries. Curiosities, such as marginal notes, small corrections, and paragraph marks, reveal that the scribes were concerned not only with the content, but with the form and organization of the text, allowing that the message was transmitted with precision for future generations. These manuscripts transformed the understanding of the Bible, demonstrating that fidelity textual is a central characteristic of the Old Testament, reinforcing the historical credibility of the scriptures and showing that the texts we read today have direct roots in antiquity. Discovery 8. The Pilate Stone. In 1961, during excavations in Caesarea Maritima, an ancient port city built by Herod, archaeologists discovered a stone reused in a Roman building with a Latin inscription mentioning Pontius Pilate, the prefect of Judea, cited in the Gospels. The inscription contains the words Tiberian, Pontius Pilate, prefects, and the Diae, confirming that Pilate existed and exercised political authority in the region during the reign of Tiberius, between 26 and 36 AD. Beside validating the historicity of Pilate, the stone provides political context. Tiberian mentioned was probably a building public or sanctuary in honor of the emperor, highlighting the presence of the Roman administration in Judea and the political control exercised over the local population. This discovery shows how the Gospels are aligned with external historical records and confirms that events like the trial of Jesus happened in a real context with rulers, cities, and structures, verifiable administrative structures. The stone of Pilate is one of the few pieces of physical evidence, that directly connects a biblical character with the archaeological record Archaeological, increasing confidence in the historical accuracy of the accounts and offering a detailed view of functioning of the Roman administration and of the interactions between local authorities and imperial at the time. Discovery 9. Ketef Hinnon amulets. In 1979, archaeologists who were exploring tombs excavated in the rock of Ketef Hinnon near the valley of Ben Hinnom, they discovered 2 small silver amulets that contains the priestly blessing of Numbers 6, 24 to 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you, his face upon you, and grant you grace. The Lord turn your face to you and give you peace. Dated from the end of the 6th century BC of Christ. These amulets are the text's biblical, oldest known, and reveal that passages from the Bible were already used as personal protection and instruments of devotion. The making of the amulets required the skill. Letters small and precise engraved on strips of silver, rolled in a way to preserve the text for centuries. The historical context indicates that these pieces were used in daily religious practices, showing that the textual tradition already had practical and spiritual relevance long before the Babylonian exile. These objects not only confirm the antiquity of the biblical text, but also indicate that the words of the Bible had direct impact on people's lives, connecting belief, ritual, and object physical. Discovery 10. Temple of Solomon. The Temple of Solomon, also known as the First Temple, was a monumental construction erected in the century X before Christ in Jerusalem, according to described in the Bible, mainly in the book of 1 Kings. Solomon, son of King David, built the temple as a place of worship to God, replacing the tabernacle that accompanied the Israelites during the Exodus and transforming Jerusalem into the spiritual center of Israel. The temple had impressive dimensions, about 27-meter length, 9-meter wide, and 13.5-meter height, divided into 3 main areas. The most sacred space, known as the Holy of Holies, housed the Ark of the Covenant, and only the high priest could enter this place once a year on the Day of Atonement. The holy place situated ahead was where the priests performed daily rituals, including the offering of incense and the care for the table of the bread of proposition. The outer courtyard served as meeting area for the people for prayers and sacrifices. The construction was adorned with noble and precious materials, including gold, silver, bronze, wood of cedar, and cypress, in addition to stones precious that adorned columns, altars, and sacred furniture. 2 columns front, called Jachin and Boaz, made of bronze and about 18 meters high, marked the grandeur of the entrance and symbolized the strength and stability of the temple. Despite its grandeur, the Temple of Solomon was destroyed in the year 586 before Christ by the Babylonians under the command of Nebuchadnezzar II, who took many of the sacred artifacts to Babylon. However, the memory of the temple endured, becoming a symbol central to the Jewish faith and the history of Israel. Although the original construction of the Temple of Solomon no longer exists physically, archaeology offers important clues about life in Jerusalem during the period of the First Temple. Excavations carried out on the Temple Mount and surroundings revealed fragments of ceramics, stone blocks, and seals with Hebrew inscriptions dated from the same era, which helped to contextualize historically the city and its practices religious. Remains of bones found in corresponding archaeological layers suggest the performance of sacrifices in consonance with biblical records. Inscriptions of kings of Judah, such as Hezekiah and Manasseh, present in some objects, reinforce the political and religious center of the time, indicating that Jerusalem functioned as a center administrative and spiritual. Discovery 11. Milo of Solomon. Fortification biblical confirmed. The Milo of Solomon is a fortification mentioned in the Bible in 1 Kings 9:15 as one of the works that King Solomon carried out to strengthen the city of David in Jerusalem. For centuries, the exact location of this construction remained a mystery, generating debates between historians and archaeologists. However, recent excavations have revealed evidence that coincides with the biblical descriptions, providing a material proof of Milo's existence. To the north of the ancient city, archaeologists identified a large ditch with carefully constructed stone walls built, designed to protect the city from invasions and control access to the strategic points. The moat presented advanced techniques of engineering for the time, including efficient drainage and reinforcement systems that ensured the durability of the walls even under military pressure. The researchers discovered fragments of ceramics and remnants of construction tools, construction on the site, allowing reconstruct the daily life and practices of work of the time. These evidences indicate that the Milo was not just a defensive structure, but part of a planned urban complex where workers, artisans, and soldiers collaborated to maintain the city protected and functional. The fortification also included watchtowers and strategic passages that facilitated the internal movement without compromising security, demonstrating a level of advanced military planning for the period of King Solomon. Beside the aspect military, Milo reveals information about the administration of the city and the capacity organizational of the Kingdom of Israel. The coordination necessary to erect a construction of this size involved hierarchy, resource management, transport of materials, and supervision of skilled labor, reinforcing the idea that Jerusalem was a city sophisticated, well-planned, and prepared for external challenges. Each stone and each archaeological trace found at the place provide precious data to understand not only the existence of Milo, but also the historical context, cultural and social, of the period of the First Temple. Discovery number 12. The inscription of Joash, the renovation of the temple recorded in stone. The Joash inscription is a stone tablet that contains an inscription in ancient Hebrew dated from the century IAD, Christ during the reign of King Joash. She describes in detail the reconstruction of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, as narrated in 2 Kings 12, verses 4 to 16, and 2 Chronicles 24, from verse 4 to 14. These biblical texts relate that Joash ordered the collection of silver to repair the damage to the temple, an action that is confirmed by the inscription. The tablet emerged publicly in 2003, and its origin is surrounded by controversy. Some reports claim that she would have been discovered in Jerusalem near the mountain of the temple, which would suggest a direct connection with the Temple of Solomon. No, however, the other quite disseminated among scholars that the tablet was acquired from collectors' private individuals without archaeological record formal, which raises doubts about its provenance and authenticity. It contains 15 lines of text that detail how the resources were collected and used for the temple restoration works. The authenticity of the Joash inscription was widely debated. In 2003, the Israel Antiquities Authority, IAAA, declared that the inscription was a modern forgery. However, after a long legal battle, a court Israeli concluded that there was no sufficient evidence to prove that the inscription was false, and the collector who possessed it was acquitted of all charges. In 2013, the Supreme Court of Israel determined that the tablet should be returned to the owner, acknowledging that there was no legal basis for its apprehension. Archaeometric studies conducted after the trial indicated that the board has characteristics that suggest an antiquity compatible with the described period. The analysis of the patina of the stone revealed that it contains particles that date back approximately 2,250 years ago, indicating that the inscription may be genuine. Moreover, the presence of microfossils and the mineral composition of the tablet are consistent with materials found in artifacts from the time of the First Temple. If confirmed as authentic, the Joah inscription would be the only direct archaeological evidence of the reform of Solomon's temple and the only royal inscription of Judah known until moment. She would provide a connection tangible between the biblical accounts and the material history, offering valuable insights into the administration and religious practice in the ancient kingdom of Judah. And now we want to hear from you. After learning about these discoveries, incredible archaeological, leave us comments your opinion. Which one of them you found more surprising? You believes that the Bible is completely historically reliable, or do you think that some stories are still a mystery? Share your ideas, debate with other viewers, and participate in this fascinating conversation about faith, history, and archaeology. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to continue exploring with us the secrets that archaeology still reveals. Your opinion is part of this discovery.